What's going on, world? It's your main man, the author. Right back at that ass again. Here's another one. Just want to make this video, man. This brief video. I've been seeing a lot of videos lately on sovereign citizens. I don't know how many of you are familiar with sovereign citizens, but so-called Moors, mostly Black Americans, are pretty much, I don't want to say at war with the system, because it's not really a war. They're just getting themselves arrested. I don't know if you've probably seen these videos, or if you type in war into the search engine, or sovereign citizens getting their windows smashed, or car windows smashed by police, then you'll see images or videos that come up. But as of late, I guess the past 6 months, a lot of Moorish videos have been popping up. And I used to hear Moors speak in lectures and things like that, especially like Moors like Lembe. I think that's a brother out of Harlem. They used to give lectures, and he used to talk about metaphysical science and things of that nature. And I thought he had some good lectures, but he seemed like he was honest. He was really, he really believed in what he was doing. But now you have a lot of people coming out claiming to be Moors, just I think so they won't have to renew their license, or just so they won't have to get registration for their vehicles. But I don't know a whole lot, but based on from what I know, the Moors are pretty much mostly Black Americans from over here who basically have a belief that we were the first people here, which I do believe. But they believe that there was like certain documentation that was written out. We had our own government even before the Europeans came over to this land, and we abided by our own rules and things of that nature. And really, the Europeans are the invaders, so they're going to go by the old texts or the old documents, or they're going to go by the laws, how they interpret it, or how they say, what the law actually means from their standpoint. So, for example, like if you're a police officer, you pull over a car that doesn't have valid plates, or it doesn't have plates at all. You pull the car over. The guy doesn't have a license. More instead of the guy, instead of the person, if you pull the car over, instead of the person giving you their license, if it's a Moor driver, he's gonna tell you, "Well, I'm not driving. I'm traveling. I don't need a license. I have documentation showing that I'm a sovereign citizen of this nation. I have documents," and usually from a lot of the videos I've seen, a lot of times the Moors don't even want to lower. You know how when an officer approaches your vehicle, you roll the window down so you can speak with them. They won't even roll their window down. They'll crack it, which I think is rude and unnecessary. They'll speak through the crack of the window, and then they'll tell the officer pretty much, "I don't need a license. I don't need a registration. You don't have the right to pull me over." And they'll go into, they all read from this script, which the Moors have. I guess it's a little group or a community that's together, where they give those guys a script. They tell those guys they don't need a license. I'm sorry, tongue getting tied. They don't need a license. They don't need a registration. If a cop pulls them over, they're only traveling, so on and so forth. And basically, from what I see, the Moors are on the losing end of this stick, man. I've seen a lot of videos where Moors have been pulled over. They'll go back and forth with the police. First and foremost, I don't believe you should hold court in the street. Arguing with a police officer is not really going to get you anywhere. If you're correct, have your day in court. But they'll argue right there in the street. So all that happens is the officer said, "Well, you don't have a license, you don't have registration." Plus, you're being rude, and the officer will talk with them about an hour, and they'll just end up just busting their window out, dragging them out of the car, arresting them, taking them down to the police station, and they'll, depending on how long it takes for you to see the judge, and then you'll see the judge, and then their car is impounded. So, and my point for this video is, man, sovereign citizens or Moors, or for the most part, I think jackasses, and they're confused. And the reason why I say that is this, and some people might say, well, you're Uncle Tom, you're going along with the system. Here's the thing: they're not really bucking the system. You're just making it easier for them to lock up more blacks, because it's mostly mostly African. Well, I don't like to call us Africans, but there's mostly just blacks who are from the U.S. who are doing this type of stuff. I mean, there are some whites and some Mexicans that have started this as well, but the vast majority, from what I see, are black, typically black men, maybe a few black women, and I don't know. It just seems like an out for the powerless trying to have power. And it's not really going to work, man. First and foremost, that's why, and I've seen this before, not to go off on a tangent, but this guy was at this apartment complex. The cop came in, said that he lived at the residence, or that's what he said. The cop asked for his ID, and he refused to show the cop. He had no respect for the cop, and that's my thing too, man. It's like it amazes me that some black men in this country nowadays, especially this generation, are so comfortable with talking back to police. But when you look at the news stories, we're the most vulnerable in terms of getting hurt with our interactions with police. You'll think we'd be more mindful of police. Now, I'm not saying, you bow down and kiss their boot, but at the same time, though, you see the average white police officer pull over the average white, and they have a lot more respect for an officer than the average black man. But when you look at the statistics, now I'm not sure, it's more whites or Europeans in this country than blacks, so maybe more whites are killed on average than blacks. But I know if we're not killed the most by police, then we're killed at a higher rate in terms of we're killed disproportionately, meaning our population in this country is only 13%, roughly 13 or 14%. So our killing rate by police shouldn't be as high. It should be the way we are. Say we do, receive backlash from police officers, and we are killed and stuff like that. That should be in direct correlation with our percentage. Meaning if we're only 13% of the population in terms of deaths by police, we shouldn't be like 50% of that of the nation's overall rate and fatalities when it comes to police interactions, right? But I know our rate is disproportionate, man, meaning that, it's very easy for officers, regardless of their color, but especially white officers, typically it's white officers, it's very easy for white officers to kill blacks in general, especially black men, but black people in general, very easy for them to do that and to still get off by the courts. So you think we'd have a group think where we'd be more mindful in the way we interact with officers. Now, being polite or halfway disrespectful doesn't guarantee that you're gonna, live, after your interaction. It doesn't guarantee your survival, but it does give you a better chance. Just like a man who goes out in the woods, if he's on his P's and Q's and walking quietly with a shotgun, if he's hunting, or if he's trying to protect himself from the wilderness, he'll have a lot better chance of survival versus just walking out there with no weapon and just, doing a little cool walk, thinking it, he doesn't have to, defend themselves. No bears or lions should touch him. Just like with the one video I just saw with the Moor in the courtroom. I guess the judge just told him, hey, look, man, this is a done issue. You're guilty. So this guy walks out of the courtroom, black dude, right? Walks out of the courtroom. Then the officers follow him like, man, you can't just walk out the courtroom. And he says, no, the judge abandoned ship or whatever. So he told the officers, don't touch him. Sound just like the average black female. Now, this is a guy. Come on, don't touch him. Don't touch him. That's exactly how black females sound. And, of course, they surrounded him and wrestled him to the floor and cuffed him. He dropped all that knowledge, quote unquote, and they still arrested him and threw the cuffs on him. And now he's going to get a charge for walking out of the courtroom, resisting arrest. You know what I'm saying? So you can't win like that, man. So that's why I would say that the average Moor is a confused jackass, man. Life is a lot like a chess game. In terms of what I've picked up from my 40 years on the planet, life is more like chess, man. All the pieces pretty much stay as they are. A pawn is a pawn, a knight is a knight, a queen is a queen, the king is a king. Now, if a pawn makes it to the end of that chessboard, which is very rare, then it can become whatever it wants, right? But your side can't, and it's funny because it's always black versus white, right, on a chessboard. No other colors, all right. And just like in The Wire, when that dude talked about when that character D'Angelo Barksdale tried to explain the game to Bodie. Bodie said, if I'm a pawn and I make it to the other side of the chessboard, I win. He was like, no, when you take over that man's kingdom, you win. And man, like he told him, he said most pawns are cap quick. They are out the game early, and I think that's the same thing that a lot of blacks struggle with, man. You can't just, it's just a bunch of pawns trying to get to the end of the board. The game doesn't work like that, man. What I mean by that is you can't just make up your own rules, or say some of those rules were written that way years ago. That doesn't mean that you're going to pretty much be able to get over or run things because of what those rules said before the Europeans took over. You have to go by what's going on now, because here's the thing, regardless of what the rules say, you have to face the people who either will enforce the rule or will be lenient on the rule. I remember one time I worked for the security company. I know my plate was expired, and the officer told me I need to get, because I had my license. He knew my plate was expired, and he said, well, you work for a company, man. I see you got your uniform on. You're headed to work. If I were you, I would get this taken care of. Now, he could have gave me a ticket. Technically, he was supposed to, but he chose not to. So regardless of whatever a rule says, you still have to face the people on a day-to-day basis who can either enforce that rule or be lenient on that rule. So, and these Moors are acting like the rules are going to get up off of the documents and have guns and protect them against the police. Like the rules are things that's gonna protect them. No, bro. Who you think makes the rules? You can't just tell them the rules and they just gonna automatically just say, oh, okay, it does say that back in 1600. Okay, fine, you can travel. So it doesn't work like that, man. You have to face the cops, the judges, lawyers. You have to face all these people who could either enforce the rules very brutally, or they can back off and be lenient on the rules. You know what I'm saying? And with you, if you won't even roll the window down and talk with this and speak with the officer, why should he be lenient? On you. And like I said, you're not gonna win that way. And if you want things to be like they used to, as a Moor, then you have to take over the system. Your team has to take the king. You have to take over by military force or take over through the monetary system, which is I don't see us doing either. We don't have a navy, we don't have an army. You know, blacks in this country don't have a navy, army, marines. We don't have ground troops. So the military thing, I don't know how that's going to work. Having the world by the balls because you control the money, like a lot of the Jewish community, you have to have control over important businesses. And I do know back in the day, like in Durham, a lot of our ancestors owned valuable real estate. They owned valuable businesses. I'm hearing that our ancestors even owned territory in Wall Street, but they sold it. You know what I'm saying? And whites ain't giving it back. We sold a lot of our territory, or some of it was taken. Either way, you're going to have to do like they did us. You're going to have to take that either by force, or you have a patent on something that the rest of the world needs and only your group has access to it. And then you can make people do what you want them to do if you can. But still, you do have to still protect that through military might. Excuse me. Of course, if you did have a patent on something and you did have a businesses, or you had a patent on some type of invention where you had access to a lot of money, you could probably pay for your own. You can pay to have a country or protect you. But like I said, we don't have any businesses in the black community, and or not any businesses that are worth the shit. Even the small businesses, even blacks who have a cupcake stand and a mall. Usually that doesn't last too long because the prices they charge are way too high. A lot of us don't even know how to use money to our advantage, and that's not just blacks, that's poor people as well. But I'm just saying, as a whole, being a sovereign citizen, if you want to go ahead and talk to people that way and try to have do things the way you want to do it just because of what the rules say or the way you interpret the rule, is not going to work, man. And that's why, like I said, with the kid who was at the pool and they asked him for his ID, and he said he doesn't have to show the cop ID. He don't give a damn about a cop. He's not intimidated by a cop. It's like, man, well, you should be. But I always keep my ID on me because I've had officers ask me for my ID on college campuses when I went to school at Stony Brook. When I went to school at Cortland, I always have my ID on me and I show it, man, because racism is a reality, and that's one thing that blacks need to get through their minds, man. You can't just beat this individually by talking back to an officer. When they know your group is vulnerable and you're on the bottom, you're going to be subjected to certain bad behaviors that come from the more dominant group. That's just what it is. It's not right, but it's a reality. And by blacks trying to pretend like we're like everybody else and then everything is cool, it's not, man. Other races, have more of an intact community. They have more of a patriarchal group because they have a stronger family unit. They have businesses. Some of them even have nations that protect them and defend them. We don't. So when somebody asks you for your ID, where a white guy, maybe he could talk back. Just like with my mother, she said when she dated this white guy back in the early 70s, when it was real taboo to do that, he was a prisoner in Attica with a lot of other black prisoners, but he was German. The guy's name was Ralph, so he could talk back to the prisoners. He call them bastards, son of a bitches, and they never. She said the officers never did anything to Ralph, but the black criminals, they could fart in the wrong direction and get their asses kicked. That's why they had the riots in Watts, I think, sometime in the 70s. and that's when my mother was there. But my point is, man, that type of treatment that those prisoners got in that prison, blacks can expect that, man. Especially as long as we're not going to pull together and try to get businesses and trying to get. We're not going to try to get together and try to have a patent where we can actually have control over the world through either our financial means or monetary means. If we're not going to do that, we damn sure don't have a military. So get used to showing your ID, man. Have your ID. That's why I never leave home without my ID, ever. Cop ask me questions. I don't, I'll argue to a bit, but once they're in my face like that, man, here's my ID. Now what? I showed you my ID. You ran my license. Now what? Now if he runs me in, I have a strong case or a stronger case. But not showing your ID, he can still a lot of blacks still end up getting arrested and thrown in jail. They didn't do anything, but they didn't have any identification. So, like I said, he may have to let you go eventually. But say you refuse to show your ID. Now, what probably happened to that kid at the pool? Now, that white female is going to choose by herself initially, but once he refused, I'm pretty sure she called for backup, right? Now, they didn't show this at the end of the video, but this is what usually happens. So you say no, she's at, and you and her get into a heated discussion. Now, you say no, right? She's arguing with you, right? So then she just calls for backup, bro, because she ain't going to try to go one-on-one with you, right? They're going to have backup to make the job easier. So now she got 6 officers. They're going to wrestle you down, take you to jail. Now, once they get everything sorted out, they don't have a charge. You may be able to eventually leave. But they can keep you 2 days, 3 days. It's been blacks been kept for a year over nonsense, for just not having an identification. You have to wait until the judge sees you. And depending on the size of your city, I mean, he got cases all day. He might not even, you're just going to be waiting in order and in a line. A lot of times, too, a lot of blacks don't even have lawyers. And like I said in my last video, a lot of those kids that are in Rikers, it's because their bail is only like $1,500, man. So a lot of us don't even have bail money. You know what I'm saying? So we're in the most vulnerable position, and the world knows that, man. So it's much easier just to show your ID. You're not gonna get by with all that sovereign citizen type of shit, man. Nobody's trying to hear that, especially not from us. Like I said, you gotta find a way to beat the game. You gotta capture the man's king in order to win this shit. You ain't gonna be able to just spit off some shit that was in some long gone forgotten document. That's not going to give you power, man. You have to either have a big impact on the economy by controlling a lot of the money, or you have to have military might. And usually the two go together. So that's why I think the sovereign citizens are confused, man. They're going to keep getting this work, meaning they're going to keep getting, the worst, the brunt end of the stick. Because even when those guys get pulled over, when they smash the window and drag them off to jail, and they impound that car, so now you may have to have bail. You have to get out. And like the one sovereign citizen, when they had him in handcuffs, he said, well, who's going to pay for my window? You're going to pay for your window. And you're going to pay for getting your car out of the impound. You could be looking up to, depending on where you live, I mean, he broke, because he didn't roll the window all the way down, he broke the side window. That could be up to like $700 to $800 to fix, man. Then you got to get your car out of impound. You could be looking at about $1,400, $1,500 easy, depending on, and that's not to mention bail. And we don't have a lot of money like that as a group with our people. Our people don't have money like that. So, man, I just say, that's why I say that a lot of the sovereign citizens, man, they're trying to influence other younger people to follow in their footsteps and it's a losing battle, man. So make sure to like, subscribe. Let me know what you think. If you've seen these videos of these sovereign citizens, let me know what you think. Like I said, be sure to like, subscribe, and you guys be safe. All right. Take care.